Breaking. Trump just approved a $2,000 stimulus payment. But here's what they're not telling you. If you're a senior citizen or know someone who is, you need to stop what you're doing and listen to this right now. While everyone's celebrating this announcement, there are hidden eligibility requirements that could determine whether you see a single penny of this money. Here's the truth. Not everyone will qualify. The fine print includes income thresholds, age requirements, and specific conditions that could disqualify thousands of Americans, especially seniors on fixed incomes who need this money the most. But here's where it gets interesting. There are little-known exceptions and workarounds that could help you qualify even if you think you're not eligible. We're talking about documentation you need to have ready, deadlines you cannot miss, and critical mistakes that could cost you $2,000. In the next few minutes, I'm going to break down exactly who qualifies, the specific dates you need to mark on your calendar, and the 3 documents you must have prepared before it's too late. I'll also reveal the biggest misconception that's causing people to miss out on money they're entitled to. This isn't clickbait. This is your financial future. The clock is ticking, and misinformation is everywhere. If you want to make sure you get every dollar you're entitled to, smash that like button right now so this video reaches more people who need to see it. All right? Let's get straight into this because time is absolutely critical right now. I know you clicked on this video because you heard about the $2,000 stimulus payment that Trump has approved, and you want to know if you're going to get that money. But I need you to understand something really important before we go any further. What's being reported in the mainstream media right now is only giving you part of the story. And that incomplete information could be the difference between receiving this payment and missing out entirely. So here's what I'm going to do for you in this video. I'm going to walk you through everything you need to know, step by step, in plain English, without all the political jargon and confusing government speak that usually comes with these announcements. I'm going to explain exactly who qualifies, what the income limits are, why seniors are in a unique position with this particular stimulus, and most importantly, what you need to do right now to make sure you're not left behind. Now, before I dive into the eligibility requirements, I want to address something that I've been seeing all over social media and in the comments sections of news articles. There's a lot of confusion out there, and frankly, there's also a lot of misinformation being spread around. Some people are saying this is a done deal, and the money is already being sent out. Others are claiming it's all fake news and nothing has actually been approved. The truth, as usual, is somewhere in the middle, and understanding the real timeline is crucial for your planning. The stimulus package that includes this $2,000 payment has indeed been approved, but the implementation process is more complicated than most people realize. This isn't like flipping a switch, where the government suddenly starts sending out checks to everyone. There's a process involved, there are systems that need to be updated, and there are verification procedures that must happen before any money changes hands. This is why understanding the eligibility criteria right now, today, is so important. You don't want to be scrambling at the last minute trying to figure out if you qualify or what documentation you need. Let's talk about the basic eligibility first, and then we'll get into the special circumstances that apply specifically to seniors. The foundational requirement for this stimulus payment revolves around your income from the most recent tax year that the IRS has on file for you. For most people, that's going to be your 2023 tax return, because that's the most recent year that the IRS has fully processed. If you filed your 2024 taxes early, there's a possibility they might use that information instead. But for the majority of Americans, it's going to be based on 2023 income. Here's where the numbers get really important, so I want you to pay close attention. For single filers, the income threshold is set at $75,000. What this means is that if your adjusted gross income for 2023 was $75,000 or less, you're eligible for the full $2,000 payment. But here's the key detail that a lot of people are missing. This isn't a cliff where you suddenly get nothing if you earned $75,001. Instead, there's a phase, out range, where the payment gradually decreases as your income increases above that threshold. The phase-out works like this. For every $1,000 you earned above the $75,000 threshold, your stimulus payment is reduced by a certain percentage. The complete phase-out happens at $99,000 for single filers. So, if you're a single person who earned $80,000 in 2023, you're still going to receive a stimulus payment. It's just going to be less than the full $2,000. This is important because I've seen so many people assume they don't qualify just because they earned slightly more than the base threshold, and they're leaving money on the table by not even checking their actual eligibility. For married couples filing jointly, these numbers are exactly doubled. The base threshold is $150,000, and the complete phase-out happens at $198,000. If you and your spouse filed jointly, and your combined adjusted gross income was $150,000 or less, you're each eligible for the full $2,000 payment, which means $4,000 total for your household. And just like with single filers, there's a gradual phase-out if your income falls between $150,000 and $198,000. Now, here's where things get particularly interesting for seniors, and this is the part that a lot of the news coverage is completely glossing over. If you're receiving Social Security benefits, Social Security disability insurance, supplemental security income, railroad retirement benefits, or Veterans Affairs benefits, there are special provisions in this stimulus package that were specifically designed with you in mind. The reason for this is that, during previous stimulus rounds, there were significant delays and complications for people receiving these types of benefits, and lawmakers wanted to avoid repeating those problems. For seniors on Social Security, here's what you need to know. If your only income is from Social Security, and you don't normally file a tax return because your income is below the filing threshold, you're still eligible for this stimulus payment. The IRS is supposed to use the information they have from the Social Security Administration to automatically send you the payment. You don't need to file a special form, you don't need to create an account on some government website, and you don't need to call anyone. The payment should come to you automatically using the same method you currently receive your Social Security benefits. If you get your Social Security via direct deposit, the stimulus should be deposited into that same bank account. If you receive a physical check in the mail each month, you should receive the stimulus as a separate check. However, and this is a big however, there are circumstances where seniors might need to take action even if they're on Social Security. If you have dependents, particularly if you're caring for grandchildren or other family members, the automatic payment system might not account for those dependents unless you've filed a tax return in recent years. Each qualifying dependent can potentially add additional money to your stimulus payment. So if you're in this situation, you might need to file a simple tax return, even if you're not normally required to do so. Don't worry, it's not as complicated as it sounds, and there are free tax preparation services available specifically for seniors that can help you with this. Let me address another situation that's causing a lot of confusion among seniors. If you're married and only one spouse receives Social Security, while the other has different income sources, your eligibility is still based on your combined income if you file jointly. Some couples are wondering if they should file separately to maximize their stimulus payment, and this is a calculation you need to do carefully. In most cases, filing jointly is still going to be more beneficial overall when you consider all the tax implications. but there might be specific situations where filing separately makes sense. If you're unsure, this is definitely something worth discussing with a tax professional or at least running through one of the online calculators that several reputable financial websites have set up specifically for this stimulus. Now let's talk about timing, because this is where a lot of people are getting anxious, and understandably so. The official rollout of these payments is scheduled to begin in phases, and the IRS has stated that they're prioritizing direct deposit recipients who have already filed their most recent tax returns and have their banking information on file with the government. If you fall into this category, you could potentially see the money in your account within 2 to 3 weeks from now. That's the optimistic timeline if everything goes smoothly with the processing systems. For people who receive paper checks, the timeline is going to be longer, potentially several weeks to a couple of months. The IRS has to physically print these checks, stuff them into envelopes, and send them through the postal system, which just takes more time. If you're currently receiving your tax refunds or Social Security via paper check, but you'd prefer to get this stimulus via direct deposit, you need to act quickly. You can update your information with the IRS through their online portal, but you need to do this soon, because once the processing begins for your payment, they're going to use whatever method they have on file at that moment. Here's something else that seniors need to be particularly aware of. If you've moved recently and your address has changed since the last time you filed taxes or updated your information with the Social Security Administration, you need to update that information immediately. One of the biggest problems during previous stimulus rounds was payments being sent to old addresses where people no longer lived. The post office will forward some government mail, but not all of it, and you don't want to be in a situation where your $2,000 check is sitting in a mailbox at a house you haven't lived in for 6 months. Let me talk about some of the common mistakes that are going to cause people to miss out on this money, because I want you to avoid these pitfalls. The first major mistake is assuming you don't qualify without actually checking. I cannot stress this enough. Even if you think your income might be too high, even if you're not sure about your exact situation, take the time to look up your adjusted gross income from your last tax return and compare it to the thresholds I mentioned earlier. You might be surprised to find that you actually do qualify or that you qualify for a partial payment. The second mistake is not filing a tax return when you should. Some seniors who have very low income or whose only income is from Social Security get into the habit of not filing tax returns because they are not required to. But in this case, filing a return, even a simple one, might be necessary to claim your stimulus payment and any dependent credits you're entitled to. The IRS has said they'll do their best to send payments automatically, but the reality is that the system works much more smoothly if you have a recent tax return on file. The third mistake, and this is one I'm seeing a lot of concern about in online forums, is falling for scams. Unfortunately, whenever there's a government payment program, scammers come out of the woodwork, trying to steal people's information or money. Let me be absolutely clear about this. The IRS will never call you asking for personal information to process your stimulus payment. They will never send you an email asking you to click a link and verify your bank account. They will never show up at your door demanding payment or fees to release your stimulus. Any communication claiming to be about your stimulus that asks for personal information, bank details, or any kind of payment is a scam, period. If you're concerned about your payment status or eligibility, the only safe way to check is by going directly to the IRS website yourself. Don't click on links in emails or text messages. Open your web browser, type in the IRS web address yourself, and navigate to their stimulus information page from there. Better yet, if you're not comfortable doing this online, call the IRS directly using the phone number listed on their official website or on correspondence you've received from them in the past. Now, As we're getting toward the end of this video, I want to make sure you have a clear action plan. First, locate your most recent tax return and find your adjusted gross income. Compare that number to the thresholds for your filing status. Second, make sure the IRS has your current address and your current banking information if you want direct deposit. Third, if you have dependents that you're supporting but you haven't filed a tax return recently, consider whether you need to file one to make sure you get the full amount you're entitled to. Fourth, and this is really important, mark your calendar to check for the payment within the next month. But don't panic if it doesn't arrive in the first wave because the payment processing is happening in phases over several weeks. And fifth, stay alert for scams and remember that legitimate government communications about this stimulus will not ask you for personal information or payment. I know this is a lot of information, and I know it can feel overwhelming, especially when you're dealing with government bureaucracy and confusing regulations. But the bottom line is this. If you're a senior on a fixed income, this $2,000 payment could make a real difference in your life, whether it's helping with medication costs, home repairs, or just giving you some financial breathing room. You deserve to get every penny you're entitled to, and understanding these eligibility rules is the first step in making sure that happens. Take action now, get your information updated, and don't leave this money on the table.